In at 10, the Illuminati, the Marvel one. The Illuminati is a secretive think tank of sorts that's comprised of Earth's most influential heroes, who represent diverse political and superhuman communities alike. United by crucial events too significant to confront individually, they operated covertly, sharing unique perspectives that initially fostered success. However, their past errors came back to haunt them, starting with their public exposure during World War Hulk. As crises amounted, the group faced internal divisions that seemed to spell their demise, only for subsequent emergencies to bring them back together. It's like a really toxic couple, or One Direction. The imminent multiverse collapse due to incursions pushed the Illuminati to their limits, and though they alienated allies, they managed to save the multiverse. Subsequently, the group disbanded, but later reassembled to halt the Maker after his escape from a remote prison run by Damage Control. But still, yeah, the Illuminati isn't the Illuminati that you're thinking of. It's a different thing with heroes. In at 9, the Court of Owls. The Court of Owls is a secretive and violent cabal that has wielded political influence throughout history, employing architecture and planned assassinations to further their interest. Their existence is shrouded in whispers and a nursery rhyme bearing their name, which is a really weird way of recruiting, but oh well. And to execute their schemes, they use Talons, a breed of highly trained assassins. The leaders, wearing owl masks, appear human, while the rest of the court manifests as mutated human-owl hybrids with owl-like distorted faces, long claws, and animalistic behavior. Their attention was drawn to billionaire philanthropist Bruce Wayne when he announced plans to rebuild Gotham City. Consequently, he was sentenced to death by the group, and a Talon was sent to assassinate him during a meeting with politician Lincoln March. A fierce struggle ensued atop Wayne Manor, and the assassin ultimately survived a fall from the building, but that's what you get when you're trying to assassinate Batman. But yeah, Court of Owls. It's a secret society, I don't know what else to say. In at 8, the Spider Society, not the one you're thinking of. The Spider Society in the comics is a secret organization founded in 1099 AD in Castile, devoted to worshipping totemic spider deities. They have a long-standing rivalry with the Sisterhood of the Wasp, and their chosen warriors, known as Hunters, possess spider-like abilities granted by the spirit of the Hunter. WebCorp, based in Manhattan, New York, serves as a front for the Spider Society, hidden with multiple layers of shell companies and the like, because of course it's New York, even incorporating offshore to maintain secrecy. Among their ranks are Jessica Drew and Ezekiel Sim. They were former hunters, with Ezekiel continuing until his death. Anya Corzin was initially believed to be a hunter, but she passed the true power to Nina Smith. Thanks to her affiliation with the Spider Society and possession of the hunter's power, Anya gains the ability to understand the language of spider totems. Throughout history, the Spider Society and its hunters have played a vital role in the ongoing conflict with the Sisterhood of the Wasp, guarding the secrets of their ancient totemic worship. But yeah, it's not the Spider Society from the Into the Spider-Verse movies. It's a different one. But hey, I mean, I guess that also counts as a secret society. In its 7, League of Assassins. The League of Assassins, or League of Shadows, founded by Ra's al Ghul, operates as a covert organization with the mission of protecting its leader like a deadly fang. Its members are highly skilled killers, mastering various martial arts and obeying Raz's words without question, even in the face of death. Among the League's ranks, formidable assassins like Lady Shiva, David Kane, and expert archer Merlin have emerged, and historically any member who failed in an assassination became a target for the League, but this approach has become less strict over time. Raz initially appointed Ebenezer Dark, who was known as Dr. Dark, as the head of the organization, and Dark, who was assisted by the Sensei, relied on cunning planning, manipulation, and elaborate traps, rather than physical prowess and assassinations. While the League boasted an inner circle of elite fighters and numerous martial arts trained warriors, its activities during Dark's leadership reflected his personal strategic approach. The League of Assassins has endured as a deadly force in the shadows, carrying out its leader's agenda with lethal precision, but yeah, this pretty scary. I'm gonna be honest. I feel like that could be a thing in this world, but we wouldn't know because it's a secret. In its 6th, the Cabal. After the Skrull invasion, Norman Osborn, formerly known as the Green Goblin, gained control of the law enforcement agency, now named Hammer, for his actions in defending the Skrull Queen. He took charge of the Thunderbolt Initiative, which absorbed the 50 States Initiative, and asserted control over the officially sanctioned Avengers team by ousting Tony Stark, who was framed for the invasion and forced to go into hiding. To strengthen his position, Osborn formed the Cabal, which was a secret alliance comprising of Namor of Atlantis, Emma Frost of the X-Men, Victor Von Doom of Latveria, Loki of Asgard, and the criminal known as the Hood. Although the Cabal's members' ambitions were thwarted under the watchful eyes of Iron Man, Nick Fury, and S.H.I.E.L.D., Osborn promised to them that they would achieve their goals in exchange for their loyalty. This allowed him to present himself as the one who tamed the unruly Cabal and gained their support for his rule. As Osborn tightened his grip on power, the Marvel Universe found itself facing a new danger when, Osborn has just a lot of super people underneath him. That's never a good thing. Halfway through, in number 5, the Foot Clan. That's right, we're throwing some TMNT in here. The Foot Clan, also known as the Foot, serves as a ninja clan in the TMNT or Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles franchise, and it's led by Shredder, making it the primary adversary of the Ninja Turtles and their allies. Comprised of numerous faceless ninjas, the Foot Clan's main purpose is to engage in battles with just the Turtles, although individual Foot ninjas might not be particularly formidable. They are remarkably persistent, constantly returning to attack the Turtles more and more and endure just getting their asses kicked yet again. Originally inspired as a parody of Marvel Comics' Daredevil's criminal ninja clan, the Hand, the Foot Clan shares similarities with its namesake, originating from feudal Japan, practicing ninjutsu, and delving into dark arts and black magic. In their present form, they operate as powerful international organized crime rings, involved in various illegal activities from smuggling, trafficking with arms, and assassinations. But yeah, with Shredder leading them, you should be scared. And they started off in comics, because Ninja Turtles was a comic, so yeah, it's gonna count for this list. In at 4, AIM. Advanced Idea Mechanics, or AIM, is a privately funded think tank comprised of brilliant scientists whose sole mission is to gain and wield power through advanced technology, with the aim of overthrowing governments worldwide, kind of like Elon Musk and Tesla. Their strategy involves supplying arms and technology to radical groups and subversive organizations seeking to instigate a violent technological revolution while profiting from the chaos. The leader of AIM has been changed over time, but all leaders are bestowed with the title of Scientist Supreme, as opposed to Sorcerer Supreme. Throughout history, splinter groups have emerged due to differing agendas, and AIM's origins trace back to World War II, when Baron von Strucker gathered brilliant scientists to pursue technological means to overthrow governments, and initially connected to Hydra, and AIM developed advanced weaponry at the time. Despite Hydra's setback, the group secretly grew, making strides in robotics, bioengineering, bionics, and physics. Eventually, the scientists publicly established an organization known as the Advanced Idea Mechanics. Yeah, that's AIM. AIM's goal and activities remain subversive and covert though, and their relentless pursuit of power through tech makes them really scary because like I said, it's very reflective of Elon Musk to an unsettling degree. Getting close to the end, at number 3, the Black Glove. The Black Glove is a secretive criminal organization seemingly led by Dr. Simon Hurt. Comprised mostly of wealthy and morally corrupt individuals, obviously it's a secret organization, including dictators and millionaires. They convene infrequently, possibly once a year, to place bets on life and death challenges imposed on third parties by the Black Glove. In the aftermath of the Wayne family's tragic demise, the organization attempted to perform a sinister human sacrifice, aiming to summon the Bat God Barbados and frame the Waynes for the ritual. Concealing their true intentions, the Black Glove posed as a group of affluent individuals known for extravagant parties, yet the true nature of these gatherings is shrouded in mystery. Alongside their wealthy clients, the Black Glove employs a team of actors to execute their schemes. Not actual actors, you know what I mean, okay? They employ people to do the stuff. And additionally, they maintain ties with corrupt government officials, granting them the ability to manipulate medical records and influence witnesses with extraordinary ease and speed. And yeah, it's just a powerful organization that is in Gotham because of course it's in Gotham. Gotham is the most corrupt city in the world, and that's only in comics because they can't really beat out the real world corruption. I don't know what I'm talking about. But ultimately, in number 2, Hydra. Hydra, an ancient organization with a history spanning millennia, has left its mark on various civilizations and nation states. From Egypt and Imperial China to Germany and the United States, the latest incarnation emerged from the remnants of Germany and Imperial Japan after World War II. While their ideology has evolved over time, Hydra's consistent approach has always revolved around the notions of supremacy and elitism. This organization, once rigid in its selection of leaders, Invaders has now expanded its ranks beyond traditional boundaries, in contrast to their post-World War II version. The modern Hydra has opened its doors to a wide range of individuals, including not only Caucasians and Asians, but they recruit more people to help take over the world now. Man, even the bad guys are becoming more diverse. But, you know, media's not. And finally, in number 1, the Church of Blood. The Church of Blood is a violent and secretive international cult that has endured over centuries, led by a line of leaders known as Brother Blood. This enigmatic organization has carefully cultivated an image of benevolence to the world, but the truth was exposed by the Teen Titans. Originating in the small European nation of Zandia, the Church of Blood's roots trace back to the aftermath of the Fourth Crusade in 1202. The Zandian people suffered at the hands of Christian knights, leading an unnamed priest to rally the people and drive the invaders away. In a ritual bathed in the blood of the fallen crusaders, the priest claimed to gain strength and immortality, adopting the title of the first Brother Blood. Under the founding Brother Blood's influence, the Church of Blood was then established, with him positioned as a divine figure of worship. Throughout the centuries, subsequent descendants of Brother Blood have perpetuated the cult, maintaining their grip on power through secrecy and deception, and I mean, it also kind of extends the myth that he was granted immortality. This society also made an appearance in Arrow Season 2 as the group of Mirakuru-powered soldiers that Slade Wilson made to lay waste to Starling City and get revenge on Oliver, and Brother Blood was just Sebastian Blood, but hey, yeah, it was a thing, so I gotta put it at number 1 if it was in the Arrowverse. This is me we're talking about.
At number 10, he's a god. I think this is something that a decent amount of people forget. Thor is literally the god of thunder. Like, yeah, he's a demigod technically, but he's still a freaking god, and this comes with a whole bunch of associated powers, like Superman toughness, senses, strength, and the fact that he's 1,500 years old. Yeah, that's also a thing. He's normally depicted as being 1,500 and 1,800 years old, which makes me really question the ethics and morals behind Thor and Jane's love triangle thing. Like, at what age does an Asgardian become legal, or is that just like whenever their body decides to grow? Because again, they're gods. As deities, this aspect is inherent to their existence, granting Thor self-sufficiency and rendering him immune to the same necessities for aging as humans. So while Odin serves as an example of aging among gods, Thor is always looking good, so I doubt he'll get old anytime soon. If you're enjoying this video so far, please support us by giving this video a like, subscribing to Top 10 Nerd, and ringing that notification bell. At number 9 is Super Breath. Introduced and seemingly only used in Journey into Mystery number 86 from back in 1962, Thor has the ability to blow really hard. Okay, wait, let me rephrase that. He will blow you to kingdom come. No, that's even worse. There's no good way to say it. Well, what I mean is that Thor's god lungs are so powerful, he can actually cause a hurricane with an exhale. In the comic in question, a villain known as Zarko tries to shoot Thor with a pew-pew that would send him to another dimension, but to stop this from happening, Thor uses his super breath, which is described as a hurricane force, to get out of it. No idea how breath can save you from entering the 4th dimension, but hey, all bets are off with this one because it was only used once, and of course, in the comics. There will never be an explanation that makes sense. At number 8 is super speed. Thor, a deity wielding the mighty Mjolnir, possesses astonishing speeds in his arsenal. He isn't just renowned for his immense strength within the Marvel universe, but also his extraordinary swiftness, surpassing even the speed of light. This remarkable velocity enables Thor to outpace Quicksilver, a prominent speedster among the X-Men, essentially Marvel's answer to the Flash. While an exact measurement of Thor's velocity remains elusive, he has indicated that on Earth his speed is supersonic, yet when traveling in space he can circumnavigate the sun and span the universe in mere seconds, feat made possible by Mjolnir's ability to transcend time and space. Indeed, Thor's exploits include even freaking time travel. At number 7 is All Tongue. Well, this might sound like something you'd see on a Toronto guy's Tinder profile. It isn't exactly what you'd think. An Asgardian deity responsible for safeguarding the 9 realms, Thor's duty often requires interactions with vastly diverse races, many of which communicate in distinct languages. And although filmmakers tend to simplify matters by having everybody speak English for audience interpretation, the comic version of Thor possesses the remarkable ability to converse fluently in the language of all 9 realms. He can actually choose which language to use during a conversation. This remarkable skill is known as the All Tongue, a gift that ensures whoever communicates with him will hear his words in their native tongue, allowing for seamless understanding. So basically, Thor can talk in whatever language he wants, and everyone he's talking to is able to understand him. Like a live-in-the-moment translator that actually gets the grammar right instead of just being a literal word-for-word translation. At number 6 is Warrior's Madness. Comic books and movies have depicted numerous instances where heroes find themselves facing superior and overwhelming forces in battles. Tactics they employ to survive against insurmountable odds and achieve victory can be attributed to a range of factors, and among these heroes, Thor stands out as someone who's endowed with such an ability which, if harnessed, has the potential to significantly impact impact not only his adversaries, but also all those close to him. When he's in a pinch, Thor can call upon the Warrior's Madness. The Warrior's Madness, also referred to as Sin Unpardonable, stands as Asgard's most forbidden affliction under Odin's decree. Those afflicted bear the weight of a dire penalty, with only the most solemn sacrifices capable of redemption. This malady grants Thor a tenfold surge in strength and endurance, yet perilously endangers his mental well-being. It manifests through symptoms such as berserker fury, intense migraines, erratic thoughts, savage and animalistic actions, uncontrollable behavior, and irrationality. At number 5 is Earthbending. During the early 2000s, a series of intricate events led to numerous Asgardians becoming trapped within the bodies of ordinary humans. This continued until Thor emerged from his prolonged slumber, breaking the cycle of Ragnarok and establishing a new Asgard above Oklahoma. Thor's return marked a rebirth, unveiling his extraordinary power over Earth itself, elevating him to one of the mightiest Asgardian deities. Embracing his elder god lineage, Thor's abilities expanded beyond mere weather manipulation. He gained dominion over vast chasms spanning continents and trigger earthquakes. In moments requiring more than weaponry and brawn, the creation of chasms to separate Thor from his adversaries proved to be an essential strategy. At number 4 is Teleportation. In 2000, Marvel introduced the Ultimate Marvel Universe as a way to refresh long-standing characters with new variations and minor reboots. On Earth 1610, many of Marvel's iconic figures underwent an updated and reimagined depictions, including Thor, who exhibits a distinct divergence. In this rendition, Thor's reliance on Mjolnir for his abilities is diminished, showcasing a more arrogant and resilient warrior. Unlike his traditional counterpart, Thor from 1610's powers are not solely derived from Mjolnir. Rather, they're channeled through the enchanted hammer, resulting in a significant reduction of his power level within the Ultimate Universe. However, this drawback is balanced by his new form ability to teleport through rune magic. Reports suggest that he can traverse vast distances, spanning cosmic expanses and bridging dimensions. Despite these unique traits, the full scope of Thor's capabilities in this universe remains a mystery. At number 3 is Antiforce. Beyond its association with potent lightning bolts, Mjolnir possesses a versatile range of abilities. Among these, it can harness and manipulate diverse energies, unleashing multitude of formidable blasts. The Antiforce stands as one of the most formidable, albeit used sparingly, and a weapon of last resort against adversaries who defy conventional defeat. The Antiforce's immense destructive energies are inherently pervious, capable of obliterating entire planets. Thor can now create, shape, and manipulate anti or negative forces, which work in different ways depending on the force. Anti-gravity, for example, would repel objects instead of retract. Anti-electromagnetism would cause like charges to attract and opposite charges to repel. Anti-friction and anti-velocity would speed up objects or flow instead of resisting them. Anti-strong force would cause nuclei to explode, and the anti-weak force would cause radioactive growth instead of radioactive decay. Pretty weird. At number 2 is the Odin Force. On various occasions, Thor has been granted the mighty of Odin Force, an infusion of the cosmic and mystical energies from the realm of Asgard by his father. This divine inheritance amplifies all of his abilities, amalgamating Odin's, Vili's, V's, and his own powers, thus significantly elevating Thor's prowess. Demonstrating this augmented might, Thor managed to fracture Captain America's shield with a single blow, relocated Asgard above New York City's skies, and contained a nuclear missile's explosion. The extent of Thor's achievements while wielding this power was considered just a fraction of its potential, as per the avatar of Odin Force. As Mjolnir suffered the damage during a confrontation with Bor, Thor sought the assistance of Stephen Strange for its repair, and to mend the hammer, Strange revealed that Thor would need to invest his remaining Odin Force and permanently bind the essence with the hammer. Despite the risk, Thor willingly underwent ancient ritual performed by Dr. Strange, channeling the Odin Force back into Mjolnir and restoring its integrity. Becoming the Allfather of Asgard after the War of the Realms, Thor once again bequeathed the mighty Odin Force, with Odin's ultimate sacrifice granting him access to its full potential. At number 1 is the Celestial Chef. Jarnbjorn, a dwarven forged battle axe crafted from Asgardian steel for Runa, an original Valkyrie member, became significant as she vanished, absorbed by the headless Celestial. Stored in Asgard's arsenal, the weapon was later wielded by Thor before he possessed Mjolnir. In the 9th century, struggling to lift Mjolnir, Thor utilized Jarnbjorn as his primary tool against various earthbound adversaries such as frost giants, trolls, and dragons. During the 11th century, Thor empowered the axe with his blood to permeate celestial armor, confronting Apocalypse. However, Thor eventually lost Jarnbjorn, which was later claimed by Kang the Conqueror from Baron Mordo's tomb. The Apocalypse twins, Uriel and Eamon, took the axe from Kang and employed it to slay a celestial gardener, becoming the new Apocalypse and orchestrating a plot to incriminate Earth for its demise. The twins manipulated Scarlet Witch to save mutants while humanity faced destruction, leading to the transportation of all mutants to their Ark, leaving Earth and its inhabitants behind.
Number 10. Resurrection. While not always influenced by Madeline and her own abilities, Maddie not only has a powerful healing factor, but she seems to have found herself in a constant cycle of resurrection. Meaning that even when she seems to be dead and gone and we haven't seen her for honestly years, she's the kind of villain, and honestly not even just a villain now, also just as a character, that always comes back. Madeline has been defeated multiple times and has returned since her initial introduction and defeat in Inferno more than 5 times over the course of her 40-year history. Now that is quite a lot of returns, and also quite a lot of disappearances, honestly. One thing is for sure, if Maddie is killed or seemingly permanently defeated or disposed of in some way, she always comes back. Eventually anyways. Might take a few years, but she'll be back. And friends, before I move on to our next spot on this list, if you love what we do here at Top 10 Nerd, be sure to show us you love us by clicking that subscribe button. Number 9. Phoenix Force. The Phoenix Force is literally a part of Madeline Pryor. No, seriously, she wouldn't exist without it. While some might argue that Madeline Pryor is a weaker version of Jean Grey, those folks likely don't understand her origin. At least her retcon origin. Not the origin Chris Claremont originally intended for her, but the one we got. Jean has been connected to the Phoenix Force before being its host, but Maddie is literally made from a piece of the Phoenix, with a piece of it residing inside her. So she doesn't need to be a host of the Force to tap into its raw power and energy. The Phoenix Force is one of the most powerful forces in all of the known universe, and potentially even the multiverse over at Marvel, considering it has the ability to literally rewrite reality. Because Maddie was literally made from it, this also means its potential lives inside her as well. Maddie did not know her origin and initially lived appearing as a normal human. It wasn't until she learned the truth of her origin, her retconned origin admittedly, that she began to be able to tap into her true mutant and even cosmic power. Number 8. Psychic Link. Madeline Pryor has the ability to link her mind to another being. We see her doing this during the initial Inferno event, and honestly, it's pretty scary. It is in doing this that she almost completely destroys and defeats Jean Grey during their fight against one another. I can't even imagine having my mind psychically linked to someone, especially not someone who looks identical to me and seemingly kind of stole my life. I mean, whichever way you want to look at that, either from Jean's perspective or Maddie's perspective, they could definitely both share that perspective when looking at the other of someone stealing someone's life. Initially, the two women shared a psychic link, one that Madeline later exploits during Inferno in an attempt to kill Jean, although of course through harming herself. Madeline's plan at that point is to basically take her own life, thereby destroying Jean through their link, thereby taking Jean down along with her. If I'm going down, you're coming with me, and I'll go down if it means I can defeat you. Number 7. Lives on in Jean. I think one of the most wild powers that Maddie has in the comics that we tend to overlook is her influence over Jean. Now, following the events of Inferno, Madeline's personality and memories basically lived on in Jean Grey. Jean was forced to take both Maddie's psyche and the Phoenix Force within herself in order to survive Maddie's psychic attack on her soul. This actually gives Madeline some power through Jean though. It's actually through Madeline's influence that Jean and the X-Men decided to fatally attack Mr. Sinister, seemingly destroying him permanently after Inferno. Although of course in reality he would return, because that's comics for you. Normally such use of lethal force would not be the X-Men or Jean's way, but it was Maddie's influence that actually prompted them to act as such. While it's not a power that Maddie can easily control or flex necessarily, it's still pretty impressive to think that technically Sinister initially being permanently defeated was in good part because of Maddie's influence on and manipulation of the hero's psyches. Number 6. Take your memories. At one point, Madeline Pryor attempts to take all of Jean's memories, and even threatens to do so. During the Dark Web event, she actually worked with Chasm, the current evil persona of Ben Reilly, who had worked on a device that would forcefully take someone's memories from them. Ben was doing this to basically get the memories that he lost back during the Beyond event, aiming to get them back from Peter Parker's Spider-Man, since Ben's early memories were initially copied from Peter's mind when Ben was created. Without them, there was a big hole in his mind and his personality, a chasm, if you will, get it? Teaming up with Ben, Maddie sought to retrieve memories of raising her baby, who would eventually grow up through time to become Cabal, from Jean. She felt that she was basically robbed of these memories after she was defeated in the initial Inferno event, with Jean taking over her role as baby Cabal's mom. However, in the end, Maddie didn't have to forcibly take Jean's memories at all, as instead Jean chose to willingly share them with Madeline, having never wanted to fight her in the first place. However, it was still a power that Madeline has, and she could have used it, but she didn't. Number 5. Control over demons. Madeline Pryor isn't just known as Madeline Pryor. In the comics, she also has another name, the Goblin Queen. In fact, when I was recently cosplaying Maddie at SDCC this year, most people referred to me by that name. They call me the Goblin Queen. Most people knew me either as Jean's evil clone or just the Goblin Queen. Maddie earned this name after she made a pact with the demon of Limbo, thereby becoming their queen. Although she may have felt pretty in her power at that time, in reality she was still kinda just being manipulated by them somewhat. Still, Maddie did hold some sway over the goblins and demons of Limbo, considering that she was their ally and their partner. And you know, Goblin Queen. But like I said, how much power did she have at that time? I don't think she had a ton, really. Number 4. Her secret name. The really wild thing with Madeline Pryor that still amazes me is her secret name. I'm not talking about her title as the Black Queen or even the Goblin Queen. I'm talking more about the fact that no one really seems to know just how to spell her name. I constantly run into this on the internet, and while it might not seem like a power to some, in the DC universe and other different magically based worlds, it would likely be considered an asset. It would be considered a power because it would protect you. Madeline's name is spelled Madelyne with Pryor as Pryor. The fact that so many struggle to spell it or even know it would be seen as an asset in many other magical worlds where there is considered to be power in knowing and having someone's name. Like over at DC Comics, this is why some magic users have actually used alternative names. That way they can keep their real ones a secret, so that way demons can't like get their names and like control them or manipulate them. Constantine initially even tried to do this with Hellblazer, but he became too well known and famous and decided to give up his codename as a kind of take that statement to the magic community as a whole. So that's where that name comes from. Number 3. Leave you speechless. As I said earlier, Madeline Pryor isn't just a powerful psychic, she was also crafted from a piece of the Phoenix Force by Mr. Sinister, putting her on the same level, if not above, potentially, someone like Jean Grey. Still, even then, I was pretty shocked when she reappeared in Hellions and used her powers to make Havoc's mouth literally disappear. This could be perceived as an illusion, an illusory power, but the way it was gruesomely portrayed makes me think it was more of like Maddie manipulating and rewriting reality to literally erase Havoc's mouth from his face, which she either did through, you know, maybe Phoenix connections or just through magic. A la Scarlet Witch with Black Bolt in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Pretty spooky stuff. Number 2. Rules over Limbo. Recently, in the New Mutants comic, Madeline Pryor once more became the Goblin Queen. But this time, more literally the Goblin Queen. She actually took over ruling Limbo from magic, and what's even more wild is she didn't seek to conquer Limbo, she didn't take it by force. Instead, magic decided to give over rulership to Madeline. Magic had her own reasons, largely to get some distance from something that was literally attached to and represented her childhood trauma, while Madeline obviously had much to gain from the change in power, chiefly a whole kingdom. However, unlike last time when Madeline wanted to use the power of Limbo for ill, she was revealed to have actually genuinely turned over a new leaf, it seemed, wanting to keep the demons of Limbo in check. At least, that's how it seemed initially. Her designs ended up being somewhat reimagined, shall we say, for the Dark Web event, as she was more depicted as a villain there who used the Limbo's resources and populace to once more invade New York City. But we'll get to that in a second. I mean, that all got resolved now. It's kind of a weird thing though, where they were like, she's good. Just kidding, she's evil again. Just kidding, she's good again. You're like, what's happening here? What are we doing with this character? Number 1. Master Diplomat? Madeline Pryor is perhaps working towards becoming a master diplomat and leader. At the end of the Dark Web event, with Maddie once more being reformed and even becoming an ally of the X-Men during the event, fighting alongside them and even getting to call on them to assemble, so nice, she decides to open up her own embassy for Limbo, stationing it in New York City. Maddie does this to bring the darkness into the light, believing the spirits of Limbo have been hidden away for far too long, seeing them as representing her own darkness and basically saying like, we try to like hide our darkness and suppress it and like put it away, but you know what, in order to heal we need to bring it out into the light. She intends to make sure that the beings of Limbo are no longer rejected and in fact are seen and accepted by the world above, and in this case now around them, which I kind of love, honestly. I think that's beautiful.
Number 10. the bombastic Bagman. Amazing Spider-Man number 258 is an important issue in the character's history. It is the issue where Mary Jane admits that she knows that Spider-Man's secret identity is Peter Parker. It's the issue where the black symbiote suit causes Peter to have his iconic nightmare. And it's the issue where Spider-Man takes his black suit to the Fantastic Four for analysis and discovers that it is a living alien symbiote. More important for the purposes of this list, it's also the comic that features one of the most beloved Spider-Man looks. Once Peter discovers the black suit's true origin, he tries to take it off, but it refuses to be removed, and Mr. Fantastic is forced to use a sonic weapon to get it off of Spidey. This leaves Peter with no way to conceal his secret identity. Johnny Storm is happy to help him out, lending him an old Fantastic Four costume and a paper bag with holes punched into it for a mask. Spidey heads home embarrassed at his appearance, but is forced to stop a robbery in his temporary costume. Both the victims, the criminals, and the police are confused at this strange figure with a "kick me" sign taped to his back, and once the crime scene is secured, the Bagman is swarmed by reporters who ask him who he is and if he is dressed like he is as some kind of superhero initiation prank. All in all, one of the more embarrassing ways that Peter has had to hide his secret identity. Number 9. Batman spreads misinformation. After Bruce Wayne returned from being trapped in time, don't ask, he decided that his efforts to fight crime had been too small in scale. So, he decided to take his crime-fighting enterprise to a global level. As Bruce Wayne, he announced publicly that he had been funding Batman's exploits for years and was starting and funding an organization that was going to franchise the idea of Batman so that every country would get its own Batman. He called it Batman Incorporated. Bruce coming out and admitting that he is linked to Batman, of course, led to more people theorizing that the eccentric billionaire might actually be the Dark Knight. Batman, of course, anticipated this and began posting anonymously on internet message boards. In response to a post saying that Bruce Wayne is obviously Batman, Batman posted, "Wrong, wrong, wrong. Bruce Wayne is dead, and this man on TV has completely different body language and posture. Batman has taken control of Bruce Wayne's life and fortune." When questioned about this method, Bruce responds, "Attempts will shortly be made to expose the secret identities of Batman and his allies. When they happen, they'll be lost in a blizzard of rumor, denial, and misinformation. Just one more crackpot conspiracy theory among 1,000 others." So, Batman apparently founded both Batman Incorporated and QAnon in one day. Number 8. Superman's glasses. The granddaddy of them all. The most infamously bad way to hide a secret identity. Clark Kent being able to throw off suspicion of him being Superman by simply wearing a pair of glasses. Of course, it's not just that. He's also changing his entire personality and demeanor to avoid suspicion, and most people don't consider that Superman would even have a secret identity and they aren't looking. Of course, this is still kinda silly, and this issue is addressed in Superman number 330. In this comic, Clark has a nightmare where all of his friends reveal that they know he's Superman and have just been humoring him. He wakes up and considers if maybe his disguise is kind of weak. He looks at himself in the mirror and thinks to himself, "Now that I stop to think about it, that's the dumbest disguise I've ever seen. What, am I supposed to look like a totally different person? I just look like Superman wearing glasses. I mean, what else should I expect? Ordinary people start wearing glasses. Do their friends say, 'Who are you?' No, they say, 'Oh, you got glasses.'" He wonders how his identity has managed to stay a secret until Lana Lang walks in on him changing and asks him why he's wearing glasses. He responds that he's disguising himself as Clark Kent, and Lana says that that is a terrible disguise as he looks nothing like Clark. This confuses him even more until he realizes that he is really using his super hypnosis power. You see, back in the day, Superman had the ability to hypnotize people with his mind, and his glasses, whose lens were made from the window of the starship he came to Earth in, amplified this ability, hypnotizing everyone into seeing Clark as a different person than Superman. This explanation isn't canon anymore, so he really is just fooling everyone with a pair of glasses, which is of course ridiculous. Number 7. Wolverine becomes Patch. When Wolverine and the X-Men were assumed dead following the Fall of the Mutants storyline, they wanted to keep it that way. So, when Wolverine was called to Madripoor to settle his debt to a dying man, he knew that he needed a clever disguise so no one would know it was him. His solution was to wear an eye patch and call himself Patch. Not exactly the most involved disguise. At least when Superman wears his glasses, he's putting on a different persona and changing his hairstyle and posture. But Wolverine doesn't even change his hair away from his classic look. He doesn't act any different from his usual self, he's just Wolverine in an eye patch. He developed this persona in 1988's Wolverine Volume 2 Issue 2, but has dusted it off from time to time, using it as one of his go-to disguises when he needs to keep a low profile. Of course, Wolverine typically wears a mask on his X-Men adventures, so the general public probably isn't overly familiar with his face, but it's still not a very clever disguise. Number 6. The Flash is always late. Barry Allen is of course one of the fastest men alive, being able to reach insane speeds so fast that he can travel back in time. He is a masked hero, so it's a bit easier for him to hide his identity, but in order to prevent people from being suspicious, he has developed a foolproof method of throwing people off of his scent. He never shows up on time for anything. The logic being that if he has super speed, surely he would be able to get to appointments on time. Of course, constantly showing up late for everything is more suspicious than if you just did it occasionally, and a better way to stop people from suspecting him would be to stop wearing a prominent ring with a lightning bolt on it on your finger, which makes people assume that Barry has some kind of link, possibly even an engagement, to the Flash. Number 5. Trench coats. You know, in Marvel movies, whenever anyone has to go undercover, they do so by wearing like a baseball cap and sunglasses? Well, the classic comics equivalent of this was the classic combo of a trench coat and a fedora, despite just making the person look like themselves in a trench coat. It remained a staple of comic books for years, with some notable examples being The Thing from the Fantastic Four, as well as it being the go-to disguise for the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. They still just look like giant turtles in trench coats. While we're on the subject, what is the point of the turtles wearing masks? Are there other giant mutant turtles that they might be confused for? Back on the subject of trench coat disguises, my favorite rendition of this trope is from Marvel's Godzilla King of the Monsters number 19, where Godzilla has been shrunk down and is running through the city. He needs a disguise, so he is put in a trench coat and hat, and it works until some thugs try to mug him and he throws off the disguise and attacks. Number 4. Daredevil's Twin. When it comes to superheroes trying to protect their identities, few characters have had such a hard time of it as Matt Murdock, aka Daredevil. You'd think that being blind would throw people off the scent, and yet his identity has been leaked so many times it's almost a running joke that everyone knows who he is. One of Matt's earliest and strangest attempts to hide his life as Daredevil came in Daredevil issue 25, when Matt's friends, Foggy and Karen, found a letter from Spider-Man doxing Matt. They confronted him about the letter, and he was forced to think on his feet. He basically told them, no, I'm not Daredevil. That's my identical twin brother, who I've never mentioned before, Mike Murdock. Foggy and Karen of course do not believe this, as he has never mentioned Mike before, and they ask if they can meet him. Matt says sure, and later shows up in flashy clothes and a beatnik attitude, claiming to be Matt's twin, who is Daredevil and can totally see, despite the fact that he is always wearing sunglasses. Somehow this works, and Karen and Foggy never wonder why the two are never in the same room together. Matt continues this Mrs. Doubtfire style charade for the next 16 issues, before eventually faking Mike's death because he had accidentally created a love triangle with his fake twin and Karen. Number 3. Superman gets caught on TV. In Action Comics number 345, Metropolis is being taken by storm by a new candid camera prank show. While picking their next target, they decide to prank the mild-mannered reporter for the Daily Planet, Clark Kent. Their prank is simple. While Clark is at the fair, they will pull a fake robbery. When Clark goes into a nearby phone booth to call the story in, he'll discover that the phone line is dead and he won't get his story. Hilarious. The prank is set up, and upon seeing the robbery, Clark goes into the phone booth. The TV host and his camera crew throw open the door to tell him he's been punked, and are shocked to see Clark midway into changing into his Superman costume. They confront him, being like, "Clark, you're Superman," to which he replies, "Am I?" He then takes off his pants on live television, revealing that he is wearing Batman's pants, saying, "I could be Superman, or Batman, or plain Clark Kent. Take your choice." The prank show host realizes that he's being pranked, and Clark explains that he saw the broadcast on a pocket television and bought the costumes at a nearby shop to set up his prank. But what really happened was Superman heard the camera crew coming while he was changing, and rather than just closing his shirt, he drilled a hole through the floor, flew to Jimmy Olsen's place, took his pocket TV and the pants from his Batman costume, flew back to the phone booth, fixed the floor, and then let the camera crew catch him. Number 2. Rainbow Batman. In the classic Batman story featured in Detective Comics number 241, Dick Grayson witnesses a robbery and sees that the getaway car is about to hit a little girl. He pushes her out of the way, but hurts his arm in the process. His heroics make the news, and the whole of Gotham hears about his story. It comes to light that the criminals are planning another robbery, and because Dick witnessed the robbery, Batman needs him to come along as Robin to identify the crooks. The problem is that it is now a matter of public record that Dick Grayson has has an injured arm. So, if people see Robin with a hurt arm, they might make the connection and discover their secret identities. Batman decides that in order to protect their identities, he will wear a different colored costume every day until they catch the criminals. His logic being that people will be so weirded out that they'll be staring at him and ignoring Robin. He goes through red, blue, yellow, orange, green, and even a white batsuit with a target on it before eventually taking out the criminals in a rainbow batsuit. The plan works and no one notices Robin's arm, but poor Alfred must have been exhausted making all those multicolored batsuits every night. Number 1. It's a bird. It's a plane. It's Superman, dressed as a bird. In the story, The Private Life of Clark Kent, featured in Superman Family number 197, Clark gets home after a long day, only to discover that his neighbors have left him a mynah bird to take care of while they're away for the weekend. The bird keeps bothering Clark, saying quotes from classic movies that it picked up, and is now mimicking. The noise keeps him up for most of the night until he finally tunes her out and gets some sleep. The next day he wakes up and realizes that he was talking in his sleep because the bird keeps saying, Clark Kent is Superman! He tries to fix the issue by making a looped tape that says, Clark Kent is a super newsman, and leaving the bird alone, hoping that the bird will pick up the new phrase. Clark gets home and is met with, Clark Kent is Superman! He takes the bird to the Fortress of Solitude and waits for it to say his secret. And then, every time it does, he screams and leaps out in a giant bird costume to scare the mynah. He does this for an entire night until the bird is so traumatized that it refuses to tell the world that Clark Kent is Superman. Clark gets a call from his neighbors a couple days later asking why the bird doesn't say the phrase they spent weeks training her to say as a prank anymore. Clark realizes his mistake and the comic ends with him trying to retrain a traumatized bird to say that Clark Kent is Superman again.
Coming in at number 10, he's immune to continuity changes. Barry Allen can run faster than the speed of light, and yet what is arguably his most impressive accomplishment is becoming completely immune to the DC Universe's many continuity changes. As an example of what I mean, in the Flashpoint story, Barry is the only one who remembered the previous version of the DC Universe while in the wildly different timeline that he found himself in. It's not just Barry though. When Wally West, the fastest Flash, re-emerged from the Speed Force in the DC Rebirth era, he was the only one who remembered the pre-New 52 world that the rest of the DCU forgot about. The Speed Force has always enabled the Flashes to do amazing things, and one of the major things it has done is allowed speedsters to step completely outside of time. The ability to be unaffected by continuity changes is an added benefit of that. It makes the Flash and the speedsters the only living authorities within the DCU who know what their universe is supposed to look like. Number 9. Telepathic immunity. When someone moves their body at a speed so fast that they begin to live in the moments between moments, their minds would also have to move at such astronomical speeds. And the Flash's mind definitely does indeed move that fast. Thank the Lord the Speed Force doesn't just push the physical. Barry Allen's brain's computational enhancements do a lot for him, and I'll be talking about a good number of those things later on. But one thing that having a mind that moves just so insanely fast is that speedsters are all heavily resistant to mind control and mental attacks. If you think about this, it just kinda makes sense. If someone uses their telepathic brain at the normal human speed, any move they try to make against someone like Barry Allen or Wally West would be done at a snail's pace in comparison to their brains that are essentially moving thousands of times faster and seeing things many moves ahead. Coming in at number 8, it's the speed aura. One of the main reasons that a speedster like Barry Allen or Wally West can't exist in the real world is, well, because if anyone moved that fast in real life, it would actually destroy the Earth, but also because there's a thing called friction. When we move fast enough, friction can occur from even just the air. If you are moving as fast as a speedster and you have no speed force or some kind of durability enhancement, then by the time you get where you're going, you probably wouldn't have much in the way of skin or muscles anymore. And that goes double for anyone you may be carrying / trying to save. Well, thanks to the Speed Force, speedsters actually gain an aura that basically negates that whole issue. The aura, which grows the faster Flash is moving, allows in enough air and wind to keep him cool, but it blocks all debris and air friction that could hurt the speedster or anyone he's carrying. He's essentially surrounded by a quote friction cushion of kinetic absorbent energy that protects from the rigorous effects of using such insane speeds. Outside of friction, this also protects from air airborne particulate matter, heavy impacts, and even G-force. Number 7. Microsleeps. Remember how I said the Flash basically thinks as fast as he runs? Well, what if I told you he also sleeps as fast as he runs? More than that, what if I told you that he sleeps in the little in-between moments that he is fighting bad guys? Now, of course, when the Flash is facing off against Reverse Flash, other speedsters, the Legion of Doom, or any major threat, the Flash is all hands on deck, red alert, focused. But when he's out there doing the daily superhero grind and battling it out with some random petty criminals, Flash can take it easy and relax a little bit more than other people can, and that is when he has his micro naps. Taking place in the literal picoseconds, which is 1/1,000,000th of a second, the Flash can and does take cat naps that help keep him focused during a fight and well rested at all times. That explains why we never really see them sleeping at all. Number 6. Electromagnetism. One of the more curious aspects of Barry Allen's Speed Force abilities is that it gives him some degree of electrokinesis. He can generate lightning and electrical attacks and discharges, and is actually quite the potent ability, with his lightning being able to travel through water and disrupt magic. But due to his electrical abilities, Barry is also able to manipulate the electromagnetic spectrum to some extent. And the biggest example of this is him getting his entire supersuit into his ring. The heat from Barry's lightning creates a thermal expansion that allows Barry's suit to be stored in his ring. Every time he releases his suit from his ring, the pieces of it are conducted by lightning to form the suit around him. He manipulates electromagnetism to mentally control the pieces that form, specifically though, his mask, and can cause the mask to construct over his face and even retract back on his command. So while that is a small example of electromagnetism, knowing that Barry can use his lightning to create electromagnetic fields means that it really only takes one story for the Flash to become a scary fast Magneto. Number 5. Speed Force clothing. So we just talked about how Barry uses electromagnetism to assemble his suit from his ring. Still defies so many things, but his counterpart, Wally West, sometimes he doesn't even have access to his suit for various different reasons. This isn't a problem though, as Wally West Flash can also make his costume directly out of the Speed Force. Now this ability does take some concentration and comes with the risk of the Flash ending up completely naked if he happens to get knocked out or something, but thinking about it, this means that speedsters can basically have the ability to make Speed Force constructs. But beyond just creating a temporary Flash costume, which looked awesome by the way, Wally has used this ability to reweave the molecules of his Kid Flash costume and construct a completely new Flash suit out of pure Speed Force energy. What does that even mean? I don't know. Do you know? Probably not. Number 4. Speed Bank. One very useful trick that both Wally West and Barry Allen have been shown to have is the ability to lend out and take away the Speed Force abilities from others. Basically, these two can act as something of a quote speed bank. That's what someone online called it at least. These two Flashes are so well connected to the Speed Force that they can give or take speed away from others. As with any ability that is much too overpowered, like Speed Force constructs for example, it uses a fair amount of quote concentration, leaving the Flash open to other attacks. But if they want to, the Flash can make anyone a temporary speedster to help in a fight, or he can take away the speed from people or objects, stopping them in their tracks. Or, if you go by the name Impulse, Wally West can freeze you in one pose and leave you in a museum alive but petrified for all times. Sounds scary when you say it like that, doesn't it? Number 3. Speed Reading. Like I said before, those with the Speed Force move their minds, and I guess their eyes, about as fast as their bodies. As a byproduct of that, speedsters can also read entire books front to back in a matter of moments. This can be extremely helpful for superheroes in tight spots where they need information on a certain topic or need to read an instruction manual to help them out in specific situations. For both Barry Allen and Wally West though, they are actually unable to retain the knowledge of what they read at super speed. They read it and then it will stay in their minds for a little while, but after about a day or so, it will be gone. But those two aren't the only speedsters around. Both Bart Allen and the original Flash, Jay Garrick, have both completely mastered this ability. These two speedsters can retain everything they read, and Jay has even bragged that he has read every single science book in the world and can recite them word for word. I kinda believe it. Big ol' nerd. Number 2, speed cloning. This one is something that has been seen before with other fast-moving superheroes. In most iterations of an ability like speed cloning, a character is simply moving so fast that they appear to be in more than one place at the same time. With the Flash though, it's just a tiny bit different. They do move so fast that they appear to be in 2 places at once, but that's because that's actually another them. The Flash is able to create duplicates of himself by very quickly entering and exiting the time stream, essentially creating versions of himself that are 1 second older or younger than the main one. These clones aren't actually clones, as in they aren't genetically grown beings identical to the host, but rather they are actual moments of the Flash that are just cut out from time and pasted into another moment. When he was Impulse, Bart Allen was the first one to ever do this, and it went really bad, as the hero then watched a time-displaced version of himself completely lose his life, which has to be absolutely terrifying to watch. And finally, in number 1, it's a super metabolism. This one does feel like a bit of a no-brainer, but I find that a speedster's metabolism doesn't actually come up very often, not in stories or anything really. Basically, every speedster has a faster metabolism than an average human, and that just makes sense, but it affects each of them differently. They all heal at a faster rate than normal people, but Barry Allen himself has shown the ability to just focus on an injury and heal it almost instantly. When his arm was completely crushed, it only took minutes for his arm to be completely healed. He was also able to quickly heal from the absolutely insane pressures of being 2,000 feet below the ocean, which dealt extreme damage to his body, and he was fine. Wally West at one point had a weaker connection to the Speed Force, and at that time, Wally would have to eat massive amounts of food just in order to keep his metabolism up and running, which to me sounds like an absolute nightmare. I love food, but could you imagine having to just chow down on a mountain of food, especially if it wasn't good food? Luckily, once he was able to fully connect to the Speed Force, that went away, but it's an interesting thing to note that in order to keep themselves up and running without the Speed Force, speedsters have to be super eaters. The super metabolism also unfortunately means that parties are celebrated sober only, but the Flash is virtually immune to any gases, so like, you win some, you lose some, you know what I mean?
Number 10. The Winter Soldier. The Winter Soldier story arc is one of the most famous Captain America stories around. Not only was he a formidable foe for Steve physically, but also emotionally, because it turned out that he was none other than his best friend, who he thought was dead, Bucky Barnes. When the secret was revealed, it was a huge deal for the Captain America comics going forward. Now, of course, when the movie came out, hardcore fans knew who the Winter Soldier was, but that didn't take away from how good the movie was. I mean, it was really, really good. To this day, it is considered to be one of the best MCU films, and it will stay that way forever. Number 9. The Return of Superman. When Superman died at the hands of Doomsday, the comic world was changed forever. Like, forever. No one thought that DC would ever kill off one of their best-selling characters, but they did. Naturally, fans thought this meant that he was gone for good. But there was no way that DC wanted to let their most famous character stay dead forever. And of course they didn't. Superman did return. It was revealed that he didn't actually die, but he was in a Kryptonian coma that protected him and healed him when he was close to death. I mean, fans were happy that he was back, but by doing so, it opened the floodgates to characters dying and coming back forever. Now, when a character dies in the comics, you know that they will most likely return. It's just how the comic world works. You may not know how or why, but you can bet that they will return. And for a lot of fans, it just kind of takes away from when they actually do die. Number 8. Evil Hal Jordan. Okay, so back in the 90s, DC was like, hey, how do we spice up the Green Lantern sales? Maybe you should bring in a new Green Lantern named Kyle Rayner and make Hal Jordan just go a little bit cuckoo. True story. DC wanted to try and boost sales. So, they made Hal go evil, kill, a couple Green Lanterns, and start calling himself Parallax. Eventually, he was stopped, and Hal even became the Spectre at one point. But the damage was done. Hal was basically at the point of no return. Well, that is until Green Lantern Rebirth in 2004, where Jeff Johns essentially saved Hal Jordan. That series revealed that Hal didn't just go evil on his own, but Parallax was actually this evil cosmic entity that corrupted him. It was really well done, and it saved Hal Jordan as a character. Like, don't get me wrong, I love Kyle Rayner, he's an awesome Green Lantern, but I am so happy they redeemed Hal, because I could just never see him going evil like that for, no reason at all. Number 7, Martian Manhunter on Supergirl. On the TV show Supergirl, we always knew there was something fishy going on with her boss and head of DEO, Hank Henshaw. I mean, right off the bat, they showed his eyes glowed red. But comic fans just assumed that they were teasing him to be Cyborg Superman, like in the comics. But oh boy, were we all wrong. And actually, I don't think we've ever been happier that we were wrong. Turns out that he wasn't Hank Henshaw after all, but John Jones, aka the Martian Manhunter. No one expected that reveal. And on top of that, we got the best live-action version of Martian Manhunter yet. I mean, they completely nailed his look and personality. I still don't know how they managed to pull this off and keep it a secret, but oh man, I'm so happy they did. Number 6, Barry Allen is Savitar. Alright, so this was also a really, really big deal. I mean, people had so many theories about who Savitar was, but when it turned out to be Barry Allen, it really changed the show. It instantly made Savitar that much more interesting. Don't get me wrong, he was always a cool and scary villain, but he lacked the emotional connection of a Reverse Flash or Zoom. And once the secret was revealed, it instantly made things more interesting. I think the only thing that bugged fans was that they wish they revealed it a little bit sooner in the season so that we could have gotten more of all that evil Barry drama. It really changed the dynamic because it was Barry that they were fighting. A slightly different version of Barry, but one that had all the same memories as the original. So it made for a very interesting dynamic. Number 5, the Unworthy Thor. During the original Sin storyline, Nick Fury whispered something to Thor, and because of whatever he said, Thor became unworthy to wield Mjolnir. That led to someone else pick up the hammer and become Thor. And Thor then went on to become known as Odin's son and star in his own miniseries, The Unworthy Thor. It was a big deal for comic fans. And a lot were wondering what Fury could have possibly said to make Thor unworthy. Turns out that he only said 3 words. Gore was right. This, of course, takes us back a few years to another Thor story, and Gore is referring to Gore the God Butcher. Gore believed that all gods had become unworthy because of their actions, and when Thor heard Fury say those words, it became too real for him. And then he became unworthy. And even though it sucks he lost his hammer, I mean, how cool did he look as the Unworthy Thor? I mean, he looked badass, and it gave Thor one of his best stories in years. Number 4. Tony Stark's parents. In the Marvel Cinematic Universe, it was always known that Tony's parents died in a car accident. Over the years, we kept getting new little pieces of information about it. In Captain America the Winter Soldier, while Steve and Natasha were talking to Zola, you saw how Howard Stark was one of the ones that Hydra ended up taking out. This led fans to theorize how it happened. But in Captain America Civil War, we found out the mother of all secrets. Bucky was the one that killed Tony Stark's parents. And Cap kind of knew about it. This caused massive ramifications in the MCU. It caused Steve and Tony to stop talking. And Tony tried to kill Bucky, but Cap stepped in, and the two had this massive emotional fight. It just goes to show you that one secret can change everything. Number 3. Gwen Stacy and Norman Osborn. This specific story is still really weird. Even years later, during the 2004 storyline Since Past, it's revealed that Gwen Stacy actually cheated on Peter with none other than the Green Goblin himself, Norman Osborn. Yep, it's crazy. But this secret isn't over. Because not only were they together, they had kids. Gabriel and Sarah Stacy. Gwen eventually does go back to Peter, and of course, Norman gets mad, and, well, we all know how that story ends. Spoiler, it ends really badly for Gwen. Number 2, Compound V. In the TV show The Boys, superheroes are a well-known thing. They get paid to do what they do. I mean, they're just basically celebrities. They get paid to do what they do. Think of them, they're just kind of like us, celebrities. In that world, it was always believed that some people were just lucky and they were born with powers. But oh no, that would just be too easy. You see, Thought International was secretly injecting babies with something called Compound V, which would give them superpowers. And in turn, they would end up working for them and making God a ton of money. Pretty sneaky, right? I mean, they were just injecting babies and paying off people to keep quiet about it. So evil. But hey, it made for some great television. Number 1. Oliver Queen liked killing. Okay, so in season 5 of Arrow, Adrian Chase, aka Prometheus, was torturing Oliver Queen and made him reveal something that would essentially change the show forever. That after years of being trapped on an island and being forced to kill to survive, Oliver actually ended up liking it. Now, he didn't just like killing in general. It kind of turned into an enjoyment of killing bad people. Regardless, it was a big revelation and also shows just how far he has grown as a character. I mean, he stopped killing altogether after season 1 to honor Tommy. And then he kind of went back to it after, sometimes after some of his friends died and he believed that he shouldn't have been holding back. And then it kind of just turned to he would kill if he had to. Now, does this make him a bad person? No. I mean, the guy experienced all sorts of dark and twisted trauma. I mean, that would just make anyone go a bit crazy. The fact that he was able to channel all that, still be a good person, and kind of use it to save people of the city shows you just how good of a person he actually truly is.
In its 10, resistance to telepathy. Psychics in the Marvel Universe are undeniably real, with a significant number of mutants possessing psychic abilities, including members of the X-Men. Professor X, the X-Men founder, is a powerful psychic, and Jean Grey initially displayed telekinesis before unlocking her own psychic powers. Rachel Grey, Jean Grey's daughter from an alternate universe, is also a psychic and frequently joins the X-Men, but despite the prevalence of psychics, some heroes in the universe receive training to defend themselves against psychic attacks and probing, such as Wolverine, who was given psionic shields by Charles Xavier to enhance his resistance. While these defenses are not foolproof, they offer valuable protection, especially when there are so many damn psychics. Notably, even some villains have safeguards against psychics, like Magneto and Juggernaut, who has that helmet that prevents Professor X from accessing their thoughts. But in a bizarre turn of events, Red Skull consumed Professor X's brain, gaining psychic abilities himself. So there you go, Wolverine, you'll be able to fight against Red Skull a little bit more, I guess. Is that really a common problem for you? I don't think so. In at 9, lie detection. Logan, or Wolverine, whatever you want to call him, possesses a heightened sense of smell and hearing that surpasses that of an average human. His sense of smell is incredibly potent, which allows him to detect scents from a considerable distance, making it useful for tracking down enemies, but this acute sense of smell enables him to actually pick up on certain emotions as well, such as fear, which is emanating from individuals, pheromones, all that jazz. Okay? His hearing is also quite exceptional, allowing him to perceive sounds that are far away and even detect softer noises that are typically beyond the range of normal perception. So, combining these powers, Wolverine actually becomes basically a human lie detector. By focusing on a specific person, he can determine if they are telling the truth or not by relying on his sense of smell, detecting changes in their scent and sweating patterns if they lie, while using his hearing to actually concentrate on their heartbeat and detect any shifts in their tone of voice, which is pretty dope, and I wish I had that in my last relationship. In at 8, Berserker Rage. Here I am just dumping my trauma. Wolverine possesses a dangerous state known as Berserker Rage, which is triggered by an overwhelming anger that drives him to lash out uncontrollably. In this frenzied state, he becomes an unstoppable killing machine, slashing through enemies without hesitation. However, the downside is that Wolverine loses all sense of control and may even harm his allies, unable to recognize them in the midst of his rage, which I certainly relate to. This internal struggle has plagued Logan since childhood and often leads him to distance himself from others, fearing what he might do, but despite the risks, there are moments when the Berserker Rage proves necessary, particularly in his relentless battles against Sabretooth. The movie franchise also showcases this aspect of Wolverine, with a memorable scene in X2, the best X-Men movie, where he unleashes this fury, slashing through adversaries within the confines of the X-Mansion. But again, you all remember that scene, it's the best X-Men movie. Please flash sarcasm on the screen because they won't know I'm joking. In its 7, Night Vision. The combination of Wolverine's claws and super healing already gives him a formidable set of powers. Okay, the healing factor alone ensures that any wound is swiftly healed, including those caused by his claws, making him truly lethal. And alongside these regenerative capabilities that literally brought him back from a drop of blood, Logan possesses heightened senses like the super hearing, the smelling, and the ability to see in the dark. Although this power is often overlooked by some comic writers, it provides him with a distinct advantage in various situations. Wolverine has had an array of powers that has changed and evolved over the years, making him increasingly more powerful, but what initially began as a mutant with enhanced durability and claws developed into a character that is basically a, dare I say, Wolverine. Haha, get it? Yeah. He's constantly aware of his surroundings no matter what environment he's in because of this night vision, and his tendency to eliminate enemies before they actually pose like a genuine threat makes him exceedingly more formidable than normal. And this explains how he's able to do that, because you know, he can see in the dark. And it's Six Swordsman. In the 1990s comic storyline Fatal Attraction, Magneto forcibly removes the adamantium from Wolverine's body, leaving him without his signature claws. In this adamantiumless period, Wolverine carried a katana given to him by the Yoshida clan for added protection. One notable use of this katana was when he ended up beheading Bloodscream. Yeah. Oh boy. Later on, Wolverine acquired the Muramasa Blade, a sword with mythical properties capable of neutralizing a mutant's healing abilities, which is the unique blade that became his weapon of choice in certain situations, allowing him to confront and defeat formidable adversaries such as Omega Red and Sabretooth. And as it was the only weapon capable of truly ending Wolverine, therefore also able to end Omega Red and Sabretooth. But yeah, he's skilled with a sword, which you wouldn't really expect because, you know, he has the claws, but also makes sense because the claws are just basically tiny swords. Halfway through into number 5, Wisdom. Logan's journey as a superhero spans across significant historical events. Okay, he served in both World War I and World War II. He even fought alongside Captain America, and following these wars he found himself in Japan where he formed a family only to tragically lose them, and these devastating losses combined with centuries of heartbreak contribute to Logan's bitter and cynical demeanor. But after going through the adamantium bonding process, he befriended Alpha Fight, a Canadian superhero team, and became one of Canada's earliest superheroes. His initial task involved intervening in a conflict between Hulk and a Wendigo. However, his path took a turn when he was sent to eliminate Charles Xavier, but ended up being influenced by Xavier's telepathic abilities, leading him to join the X-Men. But still, okay, Wolverine's wealth of experiences and wisdom greatly influenced the X-Men's journey, and I mean, with an extended lifespan comes years to learn and become wiser, which he clearly has, so then it only continues on. So yeah, dude, damn, well done. Good for you. In at 4, Feral Form. The 90s marked a peculiar era in comic books characterized by excessive violence, extreme physical attributes, and objectification. But it was a time when unconventional ideas emerged, yielding both remarkable stories like Age of Apocalypse and disappointing ones like the Clone Saga. But surprisingly, Wolverine spent a significant portion of this decade without his adamantium skeleton. Despite losing the metal coating, he did retain his bone claws and healing factor, maintaining, like, you know, the classic Wolverine sort of aspect. However, the supervillain Genesis sought to actually restore Wolverine's adamantium, driven by a desire to serve the powerful Apocalypse. In a failed attempt though, Logan's body rejected the procedure and triggered a dormant mutation. Stripped of adamantium, Wolverine underwent a primal transformation, adopting an animalistic mentality while his nails grew into natural claws. It showcased the profound impact that the absence of adamantium had on Wolverine's body, and he just kind of became a beast, ironically enough. So yeah, he kind of needs the adamantium nowadays, otherwise he kind of goes back. Getting close to the end, in number 3, Super Dad. On Earth 982, Rena was the new girl at high school, where some of the more popular girls tried to make her life miserable, stating that she was the daughter of an immigrant and an unemployed biker and all that. But when her dad, Logan, picked her up from school on his bike, everyone's opinion changed, especially when they learned that her mother, Elektra, was a wealthy martial arts expert. Yeah, it's crazy what fear can do. However, life at high school wasn't just about dealing with, like, the crowd and, you know, normal high school things, because, you know, it's a comic book high school. So, as Wild Thing, Rena had to save a classmate from a high-speed kidnapper, defeat a computerized assassin, stop a demonic invader, and even fight one of her teachers when he was turned into a Prime Sentinel. But that's just high school. But the fact that he can just pull up to her school and then everyone stops making fun of his kid, that's a superpower, okay? And I wish my dad had that superpower. Although I probably wouldn't be as funny as I think I am if that had been the case. But ultimately, in at number 2, time travel. When translating comic book superheroes to the big screen, screenwriters have to take creative liberties to adapt the material effectively, okay? What happens in comics can't necessarily work on screen. For example, Thanos' infatuation with Lady Death, which was a significant aspect of his character in the comics, comics was omitted for Infinity War and Endgame, allowing for a more focused portrayal of him. Similarly, the X-Men's colorful costumes were deemed impractical for the early films, leading to more black latex that ironically have aged poorly compared to their comic counterparts. But when the classic Days of Future Past storyline was adapted in the movie of the same name, significant alterations were made. In the comics, Kitty Pryde was the central character sent to the past to save the future, but in the movie, Wolverine took on that role. The film introduced the concept of Kitty Pryde's ability to send someone's consciousness back in time, with the caveat that it damages the mind. Due to his regenerative healing factor though, Wolverine became the only valid candidate to actually go through time that far back and ensure everyone's survival. And then finally, in at number 1, the Phoenix Force. I mean, like, okay, this is kind of a cop-out, but like, it still happened, okay? It was originally believed that the Phoenix Force was just simply an alternate personality of Jean Grey, or well, I guess the Phoenix was, just emerging when she acquired immense power. However, after Jean's tragic demise in the Dark Phoenix saga, it was retconned that the Phoenix was in fact a cosmic entity, and the Phoenix Force had a knack for possessing individuals, with Jean Grey being its favored host. Over the years though, it has possessed numerous mutants. Rachel Grey, Jean's daughter from an alternate future, Cyclops, Emma Frost, Colossus, Magic, and Namor were all possessed by the Phoenix Force at some point, and simultaneously, in fact, forming the group known as the Phoenix Five, because, you know, you couldn't have one more, otherwise they would be competing with the Sinister Six, and you couldn't have one less, otherwise it would be like the Fantastic Four. You know, there's a lot of numbers that you gotta work with. But yeah, Wolverine has also had it, okay? So there you go. He's had that, and he has all those powers, or at least he has. In at 10, acidic hands. Discovered by Kane Parker after the Clones event, a deformity in his hands causes Kane to possess the ability to generate an endothermic energy that upon skin-to-skin contact inflicts severe burn marks on individuals. Yeah, this man can use his hands that stick to walls to also burn people. Usually he would leave his distinctive marks across a person's face, calling it the mark of Cain, although it is believed that he can do so on other parts of the body, which I mean it makes sense given that, you know, you can just grab on with a hand and then boom, you're burned. But interestingly enough, he also utilizes this way in like a non-harmful manner, using it to burn away his like beard hair, which just gives him a better trim, which is just kind of funny. I like the fact that he uses it to burn his hand into people's faces, but then also just gives himself a nice little trim. But while this ability was discovered by Kane, Peter soon after learns that he can do the same thing. And while he hasn't used this ability, he is still able to do it and just chooses not to because it's a horrible thing to do. He can also pull people's skin off using the stickiness of his hands, which I have asked before, like I've proposed that idea before, because I think that he should have threatened to do that to Kingpin instead of filling his lungs with web, but oh well. In at 9, camouflage. Now this is one of the primary abilities used by Miles Morales' Spider-Man, however, you can actually see that in Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man he has this ability as well. Not to the same extent, of course, he can't turn invisible, but there's a theory about how this presents itself. Firstly, the fact that Spider-Man talks to MJ, Aunt May, and Harry without them recognizing Peter's voice could be explained by this just being thanks to this camouflage ability. MJ only recognizes that Peter is Spider-Man after he wants to tell her, you know, after she kisses her fiance upside down. Like, he wants her to know, so of course the camouflage would be off then. And Harry only learns his identity after literally taking his mask off. So yeah, this would also explain why the guy on the train in Spider-Man 2 describes the almost 30-year-old Maguire as just a kid barely older than my son. Or in the comics and animated series, we see that Peter eventually mutates into a giant spider. Maybe staying human is this camouflage ability. His power keeps him looking human. To further support this, in the animated series, Peter starts losing his powers shortly before mutating into the spider creature. If one of his powers was keeping him human, then it would make total sense that he mutates after losing them. And Peter actually started losing his powers in Spider-Man 2, so maybe that's a storyline we could have seen later on. In at 8, stingers. The Other represents a potent spider deity that's intricately connected to the web of life and destiny. While the true nature of its purpose remains enigmatic, the entity grants its chosen vessels heightened abilities and the potential for transformation into a spider-like humanoid monster in times of peril or intense anger. The Earth 616 Spider-Man was selected by the Great Weaver to serve as the receptacle for the power of the Other when he assumed the mantle of Spider-Man. However, due to his subconscious resistance, Spider-Man suppressed and denied this spider aspect until a confrontation with the inheritor Morlun, who consumed the essence of totem avatars, prompting a resurgence of his connection to the other. At one point during the storyline, Peter Parker has created retractable stingers that are concealed beneath his wrists. And so yeah, with these stingers possessed like a razor sharp edge that could be extended when needed, and then they also delivered like a venom that induced temporary paralysis into his target, which is kind of dope. Kane Parker actually is currently the individual who uses this ability because of course it's Kane, but yeah, it's still pretty dope. And it's 7 clairvoyance. When you think about it, spider sense is kind of predicting the future. It doesn't give you visions or show you exactly what will happen like is typically associated with clairvoyance, but instead it's presented just like a really good gut instinct. Like that tingling sensation that accompanies the spider sense can vary in intensity, providing an indication of the threat level, but like a casual encounter with a potential adversary who isn't actively engaging with an individual may trigger a mild alert, which means that you should be cautious. But on the other hand, when you're facing like an imminent and life-threatening danger like a sniper, like the sensation is going to intensify significantly, even possibly becoming painful. And instinctively it compels you into action. And while the spider sense doesn't reveal the specific nature of the threat, it offers you guidance on the direction that you should move in order to evade it and things like that. Okay, this extraordinary ability warns you of various perils, okay, ranging from projectiles to like lasers and even contaminated food. So yeah, I'm gonna call that a form of clairvoyance. I can't do that. When I do it, it's called autism. And it's 6, equilibrium. While yes, having sticky limbs and appendages makes it easy and possible to stick to walls, that's not all that you need to actually be Spider-Man. Like sure, you can stand on a wall, but even with all the strength of your abs, you wouldn't be able to keep you like balanced and standing upright, alright? No one can do that, not even Chuck Norris. Like how else could you not lose your momentum or anything while swinging through New York, okay? He's swinging around buildings, through alleys, even through like the spaces between cabs and their backs, okay? There's no way that this guy could do all of that just inherently, okay? Like yeah, he's got the powers of a spider, but spiders don't swing around the city doing flips. His center of gravity is constantly fixing himself to keep himself balanced while chasing after red psychopathic space aliens and dudes in rhino costumes. So yeah, I'm gonna call that a power. And at 5, super speed. Spider-Man's agility and acrobatics are often associated with his spider sense and spider qualities, but there's another superpower that often goes unnoticed: incredible speed. Okay, while swinging between buildings, Spider-Man can cover 2 miles in a mere 5 seconds. And it's not just like his web slinging that propels him. His speed allows him to also avoid attacks and dodge bullets. Okay, if you can dodge bullets, you're freaking fast. Spider-Man's exceptional speed was showcased extremely well during the Civil War storyline when he attacked Luke Cage's mansion prior to switching sides. He bursted into the mansion, faced off a room filled with SWAT team officers, Scarlet Witch, and Hawkeye, but he moved so swiftly that he appeared as a blur, taking down multiple opponents without being detected. Okay, this often overlooked power grants Spider-Man an incredible advantage in combat, and explains quite a lot. I mean, he won't be beating Quicksilver or Flash in any races, but dude's still fast as hell. Okay, if you look like a blur, then yeah, you're fast. And at 4, talking to spiders. God, thank God they don't talk about this one anymore, because spiders. The power to control and summon spiders may initially appear better suited for like a horror comic, but it actually happens to be one of Spider-Man's lesser known abilities. How he chooses not to emphasize the terrifying aspect of this power, thank the Lord. Instead, he uses it in more of like a collective strength sense, tapping into the power of many rather than just aiming to haunt his opponents with lifelong nightmares. Thank you, Peter. This skill likely was introduced into the comics because people were like watching Ant-Man a little too much, you know, because he can like control ants, and now even Squirrel Girl can command squirrels. So it just seems like if you have a connection to an animal, you should be able to control them, apparently. So yeah, Spider-Man had that sort of connection established with arachnids. In truth, it feels more aligned with like Venom or Carnage, but I mean, the only reason that Venom has spider powers is because he bonded to Peter in the first place, so I understand why that wouldn't happen. But like, yeah, okay, they're twisted villains who would fully exploit this ability, but thank God Venom doesn't have it. Yeah, interestingly enough though, it's not the mainstream Spider-Man who possesses this ability, but rather Kane Parker, but I'm sure Spider-Man could do it too. If he can do the acid hands and he had the claws, I'm sure he could do this, but thank God he doesn't. Getting close to the end in number 3, regeneration. While webbing is handy for transportation and apprehending criminals and sometimes even just making a mess if you want to, Peter's mind actually lets him use this ability in unconventional and actually kind of genius ways, specifically turning it back on himself. This gave rise to the concept of a web cocoon, an audacious idea that bears resemblance to how Peter immobilizes criminals with webbing until the authorities arrive, because you know he wraps them up. But the only difference is that when Peter does the web cocoon on himself, he uses it as a tool for hibernation and accelerated healing. Peter has only used this extremely insane skill on one occasion, but it was because he sustained near fatal injuries during a battle. So he encased himself in a cocoon of webbing to induce rapid healing. It's so insanely cool and a tremendously valuable ability for Spider-Man, but it appears to be exclusive to Peter himself and doesn't really extend to others, and again, he hasn't used it again since. The primary reason behind the limitation was, well, I mean, he's in hibernation when this is happening. You can't really produce Spider-Man comics when Peter's not Spider-Man. But also, while he's in there, he sheds the damaged skin and basically regenerates a whole new body, which is gonna make us all wonder the same thing that WandaVision did. Ship of Theseus? Is it the same Peter, or is it a new Peter if he regenerated basically everything? There you go, debate it in the comments. You're welcome. Engagement. But ultimately, in number 2, radiation resistance. Now, while some spider-related abilities are well known within Spider-Man's world, you know, wall crawling, proportional strength, knowing the formula to make webs, spider sense, one of them is actually lesser known, but in reality makes a lot of sense. Spider-Man has demonstrated a resistance to poisons and harmful chemicals on multiple occasions, and while not a pivotal power, it does serve a purpose. Essentially, if a villain attempts to poison Peter Parker, their efforts would just be in vain. Moreover, if Mary Jane were to betray Peter and attempt to slip something into his coffee, he would remain oblivious. His resistance to basic poisons could potentially be exploited if someone like knew this and like tried to use it against him, so it's often overlooked, but yeah, it adds another layer of protection for Peter that reflects just like the fact that he is in essence just a Spider-Man. And given that his powers were given to him by a radioactive spider, the resistance extends to radiation as well. So yeah, that's right. If Green Goblin ever goes to Chernobyl, Spidey can still stop him. And finally, in at number 1, Spider-Mobile. Hell yes. I love how ridiculous this is. Corona Motors, aiming to promote their environmentally friendly car engine, enlisted the services of advertising firm Carter and Lombardo to propose the idea of a Spider-Mobile in Spider-Man comics. Initially dismissing it as foolish, Spider-Man reconsidered when he realized the dire need for money to cover his rent and expenses. So with the assistance of the Human Torch, they successfully constructed the Spider-Mobile in the comics. After a crash course in driving, Spider-Man's first encounter with the vehicle led him to capture one of Hammerhead's henchmen. However, Mysterio ends up getting Spider-Man to dump the car in a river, prompting Corona Motors to demand its return, despite the inability to locate it in the water. Spider-Man faced a modified version of the Spider-Mobile, engineered by the Tinkerer later on, engaging in a fierce battle with it. Spider-Man eventually subdued it and returned the damaged imitation Spider-Mobile to Carter and Lombardo, but yeah, that's a thing that happened in the comics. Yeah, there you go. Anyways, if you want to know more about powers that you didn't know people had, be sure you click the video that's popping up on screen. Thanks for watching. Thwip thwip instead of pew pew.